I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Raffian Stock.
Tune into the
Donttap
Donttap Podcast.
Donttap
Podcast.
John Jones.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
To me, the Lions are the number one rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
Man, that's why saying the rankings are bullshit.
From Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
But this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
Levels to the shit.
So many high-level guys.
So, like, the line is crazy.
Oh, there we go. Oh, no, we're good. See, he's a pro.
Okay, Donttap Podcast. We are here with Kyle Nelson. Man, I haven't had a chance to really talk to you since Vancouver. I just want to say as a fan, how like the emotions as a Canadian, the pride to watch you guys all go and do what you did. You and Jasmine, big underdogs, go in and just show up and not only like just beat somebody, but go out and just masterclass, go out and just own both your opponents. So amazing to see, man. Vancouver, how was that? Just quickly, because I want to recap with you, but in that moment when you won, like you had to know on the scorecards, barring a really brutal robbery, that you won that fight. How did that feel in that moment? The thought of the training and everything else. What was rushing to your head at that moment?
Yeah, it felt awesome. The whole fight. I felt like I was winning. I felt super comfortable, and I didn't feel like I was getting tired. Didn't feel like I was slowing down. So yeah, definitely the best I've felt in the ring yet. And I was the second fight. So when like the Annabelle Beatsa fought, she won, and then I fought and I won, and then I got to kind of be backstage, watch Jazz win, and then went back to the hotel or something and watched Mike win. And I mean, it was just an awesome night to see all the Canadians. So yeah, just the way everybody won that night was amazing.
Yeah, man, for sure. And like I said, as a fan, it was amazing to see. And obviously, I run the podcast and they do breakdowns, and I sort of poke at the fun at the idea of me being a homer. But man, I try to stay away from a fight if I honestly, personally, whether people think my opinion matters or not, whether I think it's going to be a close one or not. But when I see these wide lines and then I see edges for somebody, I can't not jump on it, whether somebody thinks I'm being biased or a homer or not. And with this one, I get that everybody's giving love to Padilla because he's younger, because he's longer. And that's what I'm seeing there. There is some danger there, 100%. He is a finisher and a killer. But at what level am I seeing, right? And I'm looking at it. He's beat one guy coming in Julian Erosa who will play your game. Mm-hmm. That's not who you are. So I'm confused by, the line again, but that's cappers. For yourself, do you listen to any, or do you see any of that stuff? Do you, or do you thrive in the dog role? Like, how do you sort of take that stuff in, or do you just sort of ignore all of it and just move forward with the game plan?
Yeah, I just ignore it all. I'm generally always the underdog. Again, I can see where they're coming from. Like Padilla's, he's a little bit younger, he's a little bit taller, he's got some reach. And he beat Julian Erosa, but I thought it was an early stoppage. I don't carry a whole lot of weight with that. I mean, obviously I'm going to be cautious and be aware of Padilla's strengths, but I haven't seen anything from him that warrants as much hype as he has. Yeah. But whatever, that's better for me. The more hype he has, the better for me when I beat him.
100%. I mean, you want to get the guy that you see avenues to beat that has the most hype. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is take some of that smoke and to prove more of these people wrong again. I made that ad about, everybody's building their parlays with Blake Builder, and you blew up so many parlays. And once again, as a Canadian fan and somebody who had said, hey guys, I told so many people he's going to, be careful. And a lot of people lost money that week because they were so heavy on someone that's unproven again, right? I find this is a big problem. And until somebody's really won a stretch or even fought, you don't even necessarily have to win. And I want you to actually talk about that, the importance of being out there under the lights in the UFC, traveling, doing the camps, the championship, those high-level camps that you're building your skills. How important is that, whether there's a win or a loss? Because I know people view your record in the UFC as not good, but I've known this about watching interviews from you and just how your camp approaches things. In two of your fights, they're so goddamn close. And I'm obviously biased a little bit in saying that you won those fights. But I mean, in your mind, that's not really a loss, right? You put in a solid camp, you went out there and performed. So how important is it that vet savvy versus just, maybe a killer young kid with hype coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in there with, so many different styles of people. And I mean, like Jai Herbert was tall and long and powerful with his strikes, I think more so than Padilla will be, at 155. So I've dealt with the length, I've dealt with boxers, I've dealt with good jiu-jitsu guys, black belts, I've dealt with Olympic level wrestlers. And I've had so much experience in the sport and in the UFC. This will be my 8th UFC fight. So, and I feel like if anything, through all those fights, I don't have the best record because I think some judging issues, but again, I didn't showcase my full potential. And again, but I think I've gotten better every time, and now we're getting closer and closer to my full potential. Every fight I'm getting better, getting more comfortable, and building on the skill set that I already had, just didn't showcase. So yeah, I think this is again going to be another new peak for me in my career, skill set wise, strength and conditioning wise. And it's something that I don't think Padilla, even though he's had 15 fights, I don't think he's had the caliber of fights that I have.
And that's one thing too. I think people don't really see you or maybe know you as the Muay Thai practitioner and know the high level of Muay Thai that you are, the damage that you bring, and how you can shell up, step inside somebody and land. So I just, it's just one of those things where there's this very surface level view of fighters, and if people don't really dig deep, they just go on recency bias and regurgitated garbage. But that's why I love, one thing I've been joking about on the podcast is, I've been biased with my Canadian picks, but guess what happens with those Canadian picks when I'm biased? They cash, right? Yeah. And I love it's not about just the gambling side of things. It's more about like just, hey, cappers, do your work. If you guys are going to go put out picks and actually say that you can break down fights, really go in there and dig in on the picks that you're going to do and understand like what's going on with these fighters. So for you, I know that, with the style, we've talked about it already a little bit, but a strong wrestle heavy top game is going to beat jiu-jitsu almost every time. But on the feet, without giving away any strategy, and I know that Crew Orland, the master of violence, has probably laid out a orchestrated plan for you, and I know you guys are very surgical with approaches. But, looking at the striking game of him, he's longer, he's got the quick boxing, snappy jab, and he's got some dynamic aspects to his striking as well, too, where it can be dangerous. What's your answer to that without giving out too much strategy? Like, how do you, even maybe on a general level as a striker, step inside and do what you got to do?
Yeah, I mean, Muay Thai, I think, beats boxing pretty much every time. I know this is an MMA fight, and Padilla throws some kicks and stuff like that, but you can tell there's nothing behind his kicks. He plays with them because he's long and he uses them to set up his boxing and stuff. But yeah, I definitely think he's more of a kind of a traditional boxer, which, plays well into my game. I'm going to be able to, again, use my Muay Thai and my boxing because, I get inside. And when I get inside, I don't just box. I throw knees, I throw elbows, I work that clinch too that I think a lot of people underestimate with me. But we saw, against Polo Reyes, even against Jai Herbert, a taller guy again. But when we were clinched up, I was the one landing the knees, landing the elbows, and really piecing them up there. So, again, great boxing for Padilla, but is that going to be enough to, even if we stay on the feet the whole fight, is that going to be enough to beat my Muay Thai, my clinch and stuff like that? I definitely don't think so.
I cannot either. I think matchups make fights, and I think that although there's always hype behind young up-and-coming fighters, you really got to look at how striking could potentially break down. Even look at last week, man. Adesanya and Strickland. I didn't end up putting out a podcast because I was focused on Series City and the Dana White Contender Series last week. We didn't put out an episode for Australia, but I sent out a voice clip to my chat, and I said I wasn't sure. I was just trying to find a way. I always try to find a way to the big dog, right? Like, how could Strickland possibly do this? And with Adesanya, what he does so well is he freezes you up. He nullifies you with his feints, with his switch stances. He's constantly doing something to make you always think, and then you stop doing what you're doing. Like he did to Yael Romero. He's done it to many guys. And Sean just walked absolutely through it. But I actually thought Sean would eventually walk onto something. Mm-hmm. Eventually, that's how I saw it. Like, I thought he was just going to pressure, and eventually Adesanya was going to catch him with a counter hook. And that did not come because his distance was still beautiful as he pressured. What did you, as a fighter, how did you feel watching a performance like that, seeing somebody like Sean Strickland? Now, everybody doesn't really necessarily agree with what he says, but that blue collar worker, that guy that comes up and just, not flashy, not brash, not gaming on Twitch and doing whatever else. He's just that guy. What was it for you to watch that?
I was surprised. I knew Sean Strickland's style, and he didn't deviate from that at all. He did the same thing he does in all of his fights, which, you would think somebody like Izzy, like being such a tactician and so skillful with his striking, would have found a hole in there. But what impressed me most about Strickland was his defense. Again, he could keep that pressure on, still stay just on the outside of range there. He could decide when to step into that range and when to be just out of it. But like his defense, especially against the leg kicks, the body kicks, Israel's kind of question mark or inside out kick, the way Strickland was able to defend all that stuff, I think that's really what won him the fight. Again, moving forward, kind of shot for shot. I mean, they're both throwing the kind of the same amount of punches. Maybe Izzy was even throwing more, but Sean's defense was just so tight that nothing was getting in. None of the kicks were really landing, none of the strikes, and then Sean could just stay on his 1-2 and really start to wear on Izzy.
It's good you actually bring that up. Like, it's not. I mean, that was more obvious because he was just. I think he outlanded him clearly. But there is some fights where you got to thank God for good judging that can actually see where shots are getting through versus when they're being blocked. Because sometimes that's a strategy, right? Like, you're going in, you're going to take some of his shots, but you're going to absorb and shell up, and you're not getting hit at all. There's not really any damage being accrued. And it's just it's good to see good judging at times. So I think there was a sigh of relief, because that would have been one of the worst things in the world if they had saw Izzy with his hand raised in that one. But either way, I just wanted, like I said, to touch base with you a little bit to your fight. If you want, just on the out, because I want to throw this just as the intro, if you could just do the plug for the fight and what you're going to do to this man.
Yeah, make sure you tune in September 16th to UFC Noche. You'll see myself against Fernando Padilla, and you'll be expecting a TKO in the end of the first or beginning of the second.
Yeah, and we have Kyle Nelson, the big juxtaposition in the world, the guy he's just like, hey, the nicest guy in the world, and then you see him in the cage and he's just violence incarnate. So absolutely love it. Polite, but we'll smash you, Mr. Kyle Nelson. And go get it, buddy. Canada will be here cheering for you, of course. And tune into the Donttap Podcast.